Hi, I'm Russell Graves, and in today's Wildlife Photo Show video, we're going to talk about 5 mistakes advanced photographers make, and more importantly, we're going to talk about how to solve those mistakes. So, stay with me to the end. I've got a special gift for you. Welcome to the barn. Let's get started. You know, I get the awesome opportunity to be able to travel with people of all skill levels when it comes to photography. We get to go see all kinds of neat places and experience fantastic things together. And I've noticed though that whether you're a beginner, advanced, or a pro photographer, we all tend to make mistakes when it comes to photography. It's not a perfect genre. I think that's one of the things that makes it so unique, is the fact that it is an imperfect art form, and the fact that we get to go out and try to perfect it all the time, it just makes it that much more fascinating. So in today's video, we're going to talk about 5 things that advanced photographers tend to make mistakes on, and more importantly, how to solve those. Mistake number 1 is trying to distill too much information. You know, we live in the good old days of photography information that you can go online and find all kinds of sources of opinions and ideas on how to solve different photographic problems. You can search through on YouTube and try and find all kinds of ideas. And that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing, because oftentimes I'll hear people talk about they've watched 10 different videos and they get 10 different answers, and it just tends to confuse them when they're in the field. So my advice is find one good trusted source of information, and if you think that person's doing things good and it makes sense to you, how they teach and how they explain things, then I would follow them and put the rest behind you. You know, I'm as guilty about it as anyone else. Whenever I'm trying to learn a new technique, you get inundated with all kinds of people being able to explain how to do things in all kinds of different ways. But I often see things like this as sort of the Google Maps approach. If you get on Google Maps and you put how to get from my house to your house, it'll give you 3 different choices, but all 3 choices get you to the same place. So it's incumbent upon us to find that proper choice that helps us get from point A to point B in our photographic journey. So if you find yourself trying to distill too much information, again, pick 1 or 2 sources, understand what they're saying, understand completely what they're trying to teach you, and just put those practices in action, and then leave the rest kind of in your rearview mirror, and don't worry too much about any of that stuff. Mistake number 2, just like beginners do, relying way too much on technology. You know, the technology is great. We've got the ability to take these mini computers that have lenses on them out into the field, be able to do all kinds of stuff in the field with these cameras, take a picture and then bring it back into the computer and manipulate it even more. And it's just fabulous to be able to do that. But sometimes that can be a bridge too far. You know, you'll hear me say this on multiple videos, but I think it's a best practice to try to understand the fundamentals of photography and try to get the picture right as much as you can while you're in the field. Now, sure, there's always going to be a little bit of brightening up some colors, maybe making some adjustments to the darks and the brights in the picture. You can always do stuff like that, but fundamentally, the less you have to work on the picture, the less time you have to spend on the computer, and the better chances you have with coming out with something you're really proud of from the beginning. So my advice is, instead of relying too much on technology, again, go back to learning the fundamentals, understanding the fundamentals, and then build that internal photographic process so when you're in the field, you have a good understanding of aperture, shutter speed, ISO, lighting conditions, which lens to use and when, and then you put all those things together, and if you follow a specific process each and every time, a correct process, then you get predictable results time and time again. So rely more on yourself and your knowledge and abilities, rely a little bit less on technology. Mistake number 3, not having a good understanding of when some times are better than other times to take a picture. And I learned this by critiquing others' photos. There's just sometimes in nature photography that no matter how hard you try, you just can't take a good picture of it. Lighting is a good equalizer. If you have a good understanding of lighting and how lighting influences quality pictures, then you have a better understanding of when's a good time to take pictures and when's a bad time to take pictures. For example, there's a place I've been to many times in Teton National Park called Schwabacher's Landing. It's a famous spot. If you've been to Teton National Park before, you've been to this spot before. It's where when the sun comes up from the east, you get a nice light on the mountains, and then they reflect in a beaver pond down below. And if you understand light, you understand that in the morning, that picture is going to look phenomenal. But if you wait till midday to try to take that same shot, or if you wait till the evening to take the same shot, you're not going to get the same results. So a lot of times when I'm critiquing people's pictures, that's the number 1 thing I see see is they don't have quite a good understanding of when to go out and take pictures. As a general rule, how to solve that problem, the first couple hours of the day and the last couple hours of the day are always opportune times to go out and take pictures. And then if you're trying to figure out the angle of light which works best from just a rudimentary, a starting point, point your shadow at something. So whichever way your shadow is going to point, if you can stand and make your shadow point at your subject, that's always a really, really good place to start for the best angle of light. Mistake number 4 I think advanced photographers make is relying too much on the gear. Just like beginning photographers where you get so wrapped up that you need a new lens or you got to have this piece of gear to be better. If you'll focus on really understanding the fundamentals of your camera and how it works and understanding the field craft, whether it's field craft when it comes to getting closer to animals or field craft when it comes to positioning yourself to get the best composition of a landscape shot, it's always best to focus on those things first and then let the gear kind of fill in the gaps from there. So my advice is, again, instead of relying too much on your gear where you're trying to just, when you're shooting pictures of wildlife and you're trying to crop, just get better at the field craft. Get better understanding wildlife and how to get closer to animals. Or when it comes to landscape photography, just understand how lighting affects a scene, whether it's side lighting, front lighting, back lighting, whatever kind of lighting would make a scene look best. Understand those things and then put yourself in the best position to get the picture you want instead of just solely relying on your gear to try to make up for the deficiencies in your skill set. I've heard it said that there's a concept that says that sometimes you learn just enough information about a subject to think you're an expert at it, but you don't know enough about it to understand that you have a million blind spots. And so I think the 5th mistake that advanced photographers make is becoming too rigid in the various photo techniques. And what I mean by that is they've learned one technique and they've gotten pretty good at it, and they think that that's the only way to solve that photographic problem. It may not be the best way, but they think it may be the only way because they're comfortable with it and they're not willing to try anything else to try to expand their photo knowledge. And so one of the things you can do, one of the things we all can do is just understand that we don't know it all. And so it helps to have a humbleness about you when it comes to photography and understanding that we all know what we know, but there's no way for us all to know everything. So to combat that 5th mistake, being too rigid in various photo techniques, is just to understand there's a lot of different ways of doing things. Once you kind of get to that point where you understand how to use your telephoto lens and you understand how to use a ball head to help support your camera, maybe a gimbal head's a better option. And just be open to trying new things if you see the opportunity to improve your skill set. Again, one of the things I love about doing the workshops I do is I not only use all the brains I have, but all that I can borrow. And so being able to go out and see what other people are doing and the techniques they use always teaches me new things, and it helps me break that rigidity that I sometimes have and in the way I approach photographic techniques. If you like what you watched and heard today, be sure to like and subscribe our videos. It really does help us out a lot. And if you want your set of free nature photography cheat sheets, head on over to hackberryfarm.com, put in your email address, and those cheat sheets will be delivered directly to your inbox. Thanks a lot.